This is TWiT.
Earlier this week, a prominent Harvard physician announced on Twitter that he would be joining Amazon. Just another hint in the list of many that Amazon is inching ever closer to some kind of healthcare play. Joining us to talk about what this might look like is Paris Martineau of The Outline. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, as you pointed out in the piece, healthcare is bloated and inefficient. What could Amazon do to improve it, besides, of course, having my Echo Dot just immediately dispense any medication it felt like I needed based on how I spoke to it?
I mean, beside that very useful tool, there are a lot of different things Amazon could probably do in the healthcare industry. They recently purchased a startup called PillPack, which is known for being able to deliver medication straight to people's doors. You don't have to go to a pharmacy. That was essentially, I think they bought it for $1 billion cash because it had such a high value and has really been shaking up the pharma industry. In addition to that, the medical industry is really far behind most of the tech world. Most hospitals are still using fax machines. There's no electronic system really that's going to connect all of the medical records from center to center or from doctor to doctor and so forth. And so Amazon has been looking into this telemedicine and a variety of other health tech options for a while now.
And so they've actually been hiring doctors. I mean, what would they, just as consultants?
So Amazon hasn't said anything publicly about what they are hiring these people to do. But the doctor that was hired most recently, whose name I might mispronounce a little bit, Maulik Majmudar, he is a cardiologist. He's been a professor at Harvard and MIT. I would assume that he has been a consultant for other health tech companies before, so I'm assuming that he's providing similar services, though neither he nor Amazon has stated anything on the record to that degree. They've also hired Mark Levine, who used to, I believe, be either the CEO or a leading officer of a large healthcare company that kind of specializes in Medicare and all of the different complexities of kind of setting up a system like that. They've hired the former FDA chief health information officer, Taha Kasut, and a bunch of other health tech experts and officers and academics over the past couple of years. They seem to be assembling the sort of dream team of health technology, albeit in secret.
Amazon and actually other, a lot of the other really big tech companies are seen as kind of harbingers of doom when they suddenly put their focus on a particular industry that they're not yet in, and then everybody within that industry starts freaking out and going, "Oh no, they're going to take my jobs." Would that be the case here, would you say, if Amazon actually decides, as it seems like it's doing, to jump into the healthcare industry? What does that potentially look like? Is this more of a commerce play or something else? And does that spell a pretty big, a significant amount of doom for anyone else that's in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously don't know what is going through Jeff Bezos' head, but it seems that I would assume that they're trying to automate the process, streamline the process, be able to get the sort of contracts to make this whole process more efficient. They have been specifically beating out a number of other cloud hosting services, they being Amazon's web service platform, for contracts and hospitals and things like that for a while now. So I assume that their overall move would be something more like that, to where they want to build systems that are going to kind of revolutionize this market, and they and basically every other tech company out there, I'm sure, wants to be the first one to do it, because pharmaceuticals, much less the healthcare industry in general, is a huge, I guess, untapped market if you're thinking about it from this perspective. And there's a lot of, I guess, potential to make money. And when it comes to stealing jobs, I'm sure that they're end game is to automate everything.
Yeah, right.
And that would result in the loss of actual human jobs, as you've seen from every Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
But since they haven't created any physical companies yet that we know of, I'm not exactly sure what the robot healthcare revolution is going to look like yet.
But I mean, sometimes they probably would say this also, that sometimes automating healthcare might mean that they're getting it to a place that didn't have it, or maybe didn't have the certain expertise with, like, telemedicine might be something that they're doing as well. You write an article.
Yeah, they have been. They have this kind of secretive group called 1492 that not many people know much about. A CNBC investigation last year kind of uncovered it more generally. But they and the people in that group and in some other companies that Amazon is running are working on telemedicine, which has had a huge impact in healthcare around the world when it comes to connecting people in rural areas, or perhaps people who don't have access to certain types of services with doctors. So obviously there are countless benefits to this, but it's always nice to be a little wary of, I don't know, if one or two giant tech companies are going to take over an entire industry, what else might fly under our radars? But
absolutely. And I mean, Amazon, there are all these signals that is moving into this direction. We've seen Google, we've seen Apple, have their own, types of signals, not to mention they have devices that, kind of interplay with our health, like wearables and that sort of stuff. When you compare these different companies, I mean, in my head, Amazon seems like the one that's kind of ripe to be the one that truly disrupts compared to the others. But I don't know. What's your opinion? How does Amazon stack up in coming into the healthcare industry based on what we know about Amazon and its many strengths compared to some of these other technology companies like Google and Apple?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of thought of Amazon as the sleeping giant. I mean, we all know Amazon. We talk about it, but when we're thinking about Amazon, we're almost exclusively thinking about, the company that we buy cheap stuff from and get shipped to our door in a couple of days, or maybe Amazon Web Services if that's your niche. But Amazon has its hand in so many pies. I mean, when it's coming to like web services, or they have been doing a lot of contract with the military, Amazon really has the infrastructure and the insane and ever expanding size to really be able to make a push into this market. And they have a history of being interested in it and inching into it over the last couple of years. Albeit, I guess Google, I would say, would be the second contender. They most recently increased an investment in Oscar Health. I believe there was an article in Wired about that, perhaps last week. But all of these different tech companies are looking to get a slice of the healthcare technology pie. But I feel like Amazon has been the one that consistently and over the longest period of time has been making gains in both a personnel and staff sense, and that they are assembling the members of the team that would concretely be able to do this, and actually forming companies and buying up other companies and spending serious capital on moving into this market. I mean, $1 billion for a pill delivery startup, I guess, isn't that much money to Jeff Bezos, but in comparison to the sort of money that other companies are spending to get into this niche market, it's pretty sizable.
I also think it's sort of sending signals of the importance of this aging population that we have, baby boomers or beyond, or even less than that. I mean, just the fact that there's so many people, that not only that there's, more people getting older, but we're living longer. And so we're going to probably have to depend on medicine in a greater fashion.
Yeah. And also, there are a lot of interesting crossovers with this and the gig economy, and I guess the future of the Affordable Health Care Act. A company Amazon kind of recently formed, I think back in January, with JP Morgan Chase and Berkshire Health, ostensibly this company, which they haven't released any information about it, like its name or what it's been doing since then. but it was essentially to create a more affordable healthcare program for their employees and to be able to streamline many parts of the medical and electronic process for their workforce, which is obviously huge. But the way I've been seeing it is that this would be the perfect testing ground for if you'd want to, I don't know, create a healthcare company that'd be able to wrangle in all of the gig economy workers who don't have affordable healthcare options, or anybody who wasn't able to afford the healthcare options in their state once the ACA has crumbled and there's nothing left. Or I guess, yeah, like you said, any of our aging population who is going to have increasingly costly healthcare needs.
Pharmaceutical Turk comes to mind. I could totally see Amazon branding this. And then I think it was back in February, Basic Care was quietly announced, which is Amazon's kind of over-the-counter line of products, like medication products and stuff. So it's not like they're not playing in this space. They're just keeping it really low key. Although I do like the sound of Pharmaceutical Turk. I think they should go that route.
I think that's good. Yeah, you should buy that domain now. So in a couple of years, you'll be able to sell it at premium price.
Yeah, interesting. I could totally see though, like in sort of seriousness, I could see like a very profitable, very lucrative business on Amazon's part on just one aspect of this, from the subscribe and save sort of angle when it comes to medication, because a lot of people, it's a challenge to keep up on that stuff, and that seems like one area where Amazon could really kind of come in and make it easier for people.
Yeah, buy your painkillers in bulk.
Yeah, totally.
You can get like one of those Amazon Dash buttons before your painkillers.
Yes. More morphine, please. Yeah.
It'll be sent right to you. Yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. This has been a trend that's been happening a lot in Silicon Valley with startups as of late, where whenever, I guess, a drug, I think Viagra over the last couple of months went generic, and then you saw a huge pop-up of startups and smaller companies that basically exist they're able to manufacture Viagra for cheap now that it's generic. They don't have to pay anybody to deliver it to people. And so long as you use, so long as you have a easy delivery system, which if you're Amazon, you have the most well-developed delivery system in the world, you would be able to make a killing.
Paris, thank you so much for joining us again. Paris Martineau is a staff writer at The Outline. She covers tech, privacy, and social media manipulation, and she is Paris Martineau on Twitter. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Paris.